Good Friday, everyone. Glad we've made it through another week. The weather's not too bad now, just a little colder than we'd like it. As we prepare for your assignments for next week, we're looking at week 9, and we're looking at completing your chapter reading, the muddiest points, and then you have 2 documents you're going to be working on: the initiating phase project plan and the project planning, those last 2 there on the screen. So as you begin to prepare to work on these, you'll be reviewing those with your group next week. I want to take you through a short video on the initiating phase. So as we look at the title of this presentation, what makes good projects great projects? We're going to look at the top of the stool that represents achieving great projects. This is where we all want to be all of the time. The next overall component of the stool represents assessment, how we decide if the project was successful. The first leg of the stool represents learning gains and includes the standards and the things that we're obligated to address in our project, as well as the other learning objectives that I've identified in our rubrics. The second leg of the stool represents end products. These includes not only the product, your final product, such as your presentation, a digital production, but it also includes the products that will be created as you go along in your project, as far as the prototypes, drafts, prepared work, and designs, drawings, and flow charts. The third leg represents project processes. Although some of you may learn better on the job, certainly not having those explicit instructions can come as a disadvantage to you. So most of us benefit from specific instructions and assessments in our project management skills, and we'll be going over those in class also next week. So what is good project management? Simply stated, the definition, we are going to be applying the skills that we've been learning through our chapter readings and the different tools and techniques, and we're going to use those in our specific goals that we're defining in our project that we're going to be working on. So as we look at our project life cycle, every project proceeds through a cycle comprised of these 4 phases: defining, planning, doing, and reviewing. Initiating, this is the phase which is the very first step of every project cycle, getting a project underway. This can be very simple or very complex, depending on the different facts, such as who is involved, what is the end product, who are the end users, what are they expecting, and other important considerations. Initiating a project is the opportunity to establish those components and boundaries so that the size and shape of the project, as well as its outcomes, are all understood and agreed upon before you begin to work on your project with your group. Planning is important because the amount of time and energy that we dedicate to the planning phase will correlate directly to how well the project stays on schedule, on budget, and how well it meets its goals. Executing, this is the core of the project, is the end, the doing itself, the creation or implementation of the planning. The execution phase is the third part of the project cycle. Closing, the last step in every project. This is the opportunity to focus on the quality of the project deliverables, such as portfolios, a performance, a website, and the learning outcomes for each individual team, and the effectiveness of how well we worked as a team. Defining a project. As we start to look at the defining phases of our project, we are going to be looking at these 7 different areas. Driving, challenge, and goals. Each project begins with a question, an issue, a problem, or a perspective that really drives the project. Why we want to take this on. This is sometimes called the essential or guiding question. In order to answer this question, you have to develop your goals. So you'll be doing those in your first 2 documents in the assignments this week. Now, the goals will help you explain what you want to achieve by the end of the project. The clear goals answer the question, how do I know when I'm done? Goals have measurable and observable outcomes. The more specific you can be, the easier the rest of the project will be. So try to assign qualitative and quantitative measures to your goals. They don't always have to be calculated to be measurable. For example, a survey or self-assessment can be measured by attitudes or feelings. Project goals. What do you want to learn about solving the problem, communicating, or other project management processes through this experience? What will be the measurable or observable outcome, your goal to demonstrate your project success, going through all the processes? Your goal should include your learning outcomes, the end product, and your project processes. So the most important thing is to think about from the very start how you're going to measure success of your project. This is especially challenging for project management processes. Identifying resources, constraints, and assumptions help you make sure the project goals are realistic and attainable. Resource constraints and assumptions can be related to time, money, people, information, your audience, your end users, your competition, partners, or other factors that will affect the scope and impact of your project. So I want you to consider what resources you have available to you on this project. There'll be certain categories that you can look at for your resources as far as technical resources, people, materials, and supplies. Be sure that the constraints are also considered in all 3 of the areas of your goals: your learning, gains, end product, and project management. So some examples of types of constraints might be time or budget to help you get started. Assumptions are things that you know to be true before you begin the project. So you really need to think about the different constraints that your project might have and identify those right away. You need to recognize these from the very beginning. This is going to be part 1, and I'll be putting up part 2 of the presentation because of length.